Thank you for joining us today. My name is James Morrison, and I'm a distinguished technologist with Hewlett Packard Enterprise focusing around security. And with me today is Greg Abbott.
Yes, hi, I'm Greg Abbott, a Senior Solution Architect from Tech Power, a partner in the Pacific Northwest. And I've been around the HPE ecosystem for about 16 years, 5 of that with HPE and then some with different partners. I've been with Tech Power for over 6 years now, or into my 6th year now. James, really happy to have you on the call with us today. And our customers are seeing all kinds of security concerns come up, right? And we commonly talk to them about Gen 10 and ILO's Silicon Root of Trust. But what's the bigger picture? What should our customers be concerned about specifically? Can you help us out?
Yeah, and so kind of my time frame as well. I mean, I've been with HPE about 2 years as a distinguished technologist with North American CTO. Prior to that was a 22-year career with the FBI. So we're focusing on cybercrime in particular, nation states, as well as criminal activity. And what we've started to see, of course, in the last 18 months, really around the COVID pandemic timeframe, is this rapid increase in cybercrime, focusing especially around small and medium businesses. Small and medium businesses for a long time sort of felt like they were kind of out of the spotlight. Right. And I call it, security through obscurity. They kind of figured they were small enough, nobody was going to hit them, but that's kind of been dispelled a lot, because where the criminals are focusing right now, especially with ransomware, is around managed service providers and companies that are providing services into the small and medium businesses. Mm-hmm. And so what that really means is that it means that when you're pulling product into your technology stack, you have to have a better conversation around what that risk could be. We saw the big ones were SolarWinds and Kaseya, where a lot of times you had to disable security features in your network in order to give those products access to what they needed. And in doing that, they became exploitable. And we've really seen this attack surface against supply chain. Just now, actually, today, there was a warning sent out that 14 tech companies had been targeted by the same group. And so when we're deploying technology, and this is, I think, where HPE comes in and Tech Power, your first conversation with any tech company needs to be, where is security? Where is your focus? Why is it important? And what can you do for me to reduce my risk?
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So where do you start the conversation with the customers? Do you go right to, hey, let's establish a zero trust environment, or how do you, obviously everybody's concerned about security and they're thinking about it and they're probably doing various things. Where do you start that? I
start at a much lower level. I think my belief is that everybody's trying to push tech. I mean, right? So that's whether it's HPE or whoever. But I think I want to start at a much lower level. Where are you with your incident response plans, right? So where are you with backup recovery plans? Have you tested your backups to make sure that whatever you're backing up can be used to restore you to a basic business mode? Then after we start there, then we can start talking about things like, what does your next transformation look like? Where do you think you're going to go tomorrow? And then as you're building for tomorrow, that's the conversation of, is security built into what your next transformation is? Because if we're not having a security conversation at the beginning of a product or a process, what ends up happening is we try to bolt it on the back end, and that's not working. Unfortunately, in the cybersecurity realm, bolting on security has not worked over the last 3 to 5 years. So what we need to do is talk about security at the core. That's where I think zero trust starts to become that place. How do I make sure that everything I add to my network is validated, that nothing is trusted completely, and I can continue to verify that you are who you say you are who you say you are who you say you are throughout the entire process.
Right. So that's interesting. Starting from scratch with that conversation is obviously the best move, but we can't do that with everybody. So how do we, let's say we've got a customer with some on-prem and some cloud presence, and most people are trying to move more to the cloud. How do we attack that?
Yeah, so and that's where it kind of comes to, we have the idea of cyber maturity. So every company has, we'll rate them from 1 to 5 sort of on cyber maturity, or let them rate themselves. Where do you think you are? And we do the same from a cloud maturity standpoint. As more and more processes are pushing to the cloud, of course, HPE, we're huge into this idea of pushing everything into the cloud, whether it's private, whether it's public, or the future we believe is more hybrid, where everybody will have sort of a mix of public and private. But once you get an idea of their appetite for cloud, then what we can start saying is, well, how do we secure that? And really the focus we've seen in this last year in particular has been around data security and workload security. How do I make sure that wherever your data is stored, it's secure, wherever your data is stored, or whether it's moving, so movement, storage, in use. So data exists in 3 states, right? In use, storage, and in motion. So we want to make sure we can protect it in all those states. And so we've actually deployed different technologies for all 3 of those states, which is something that we think that is really being in demand from the customers.
Well, that's really good. So tell us about the Aurora project. I've heard this phrase come up a couple different times, a couple different ways.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, 2017, HPE created a thing called Silicon Root of Trust. And what it was we make our own BMC. So HPE is the only server manufacturer, in the United States that manufactures its own base management controller, which is the first chip that your server touches when you power it up. And so because we created that, we said, well, why don't we use that? Why don't we leverage that? And so when a server is created, we create a fingerprint of that server that is unique to the server, that is then stored in that BMC. And so as the server boots, every stage of the boot process is validated against that fingerprint. That's unique. That's something nobody else has. And we do that all the way through the process until the server reaches the operating system, and then we hand it off to the operating system from there. Well, what we did was we realized that we felt we were ahead of the curve, and we've got some stuff that kind of supported that. So we also said, why don't we take that higher up the stack? So as we started creating what we call GreenLake Managed Services, we said we can take this fingerprint of a server and apply that to the entire operating system. So every critical file in the operating system now has a fingerprint associated with it. Okay. Every service, or every critical service that server creates has a fingerprint. We can also take that into the virtual machine. So now all the virtual machines, or a number of the virtual machines, can be fingerprinted, and even into containerization. So as we move into this next stage of containerization, all of them are fingerprinted. So in the GreenLake Managed Services model, our security doesn't just stop at the operating system. It goes all the way through to the actual data and the workload that you're creating. And we think that's unique. There's nothing else like that in the marketplace. And it really does extend security from the bottom all the way to the user interface.
Fantastic. So is that just an in the cloud play, or how does that work?
No, it's in the cloud. Yeah. So GreenLake Managed Services is in the cloud, but it could be public cloud. It could be private cloud. So we can actually deploy GreenLake into your data center if you want it that way, or if you want it managed. So Tech Power could manage your cloud for you. So we can actually launch GreenLake in whatever. So this is a risk question, right? So what's your risk appetite with cloud? We can actually help you deploy what you're comfortable with, making sure that your data is secure wherever it exists. Now, in addition, what we did is we purchased Zerto. And Zerto is absolutely one of the best disaster recovery as a service technologies out there, because now what we do is we take your cloud instance and we mirror it to another cloud instance. So it exists in 2 states. We have journaling between them, so that it is a clean image of your cloud. So when something happens in one cloud instance, it automatically fails over to another cloud instance in seconds. So we think that when you really get down to disaster recovery, and this is in addition to your backups, right? So this is another level of security. So now we can make sure that wherever you are in the cloud, that cloud instance has a backup that will allow you to stay in business pretty close to 100%, which is really our goal, right? We don't want to be down for any amount of time because of a ransomware attack or any sort of denial of service.
Wow, that's really terrific. I felt like for a long time, HP's had a terrific story around security and data protection with a 3-2-1 design with all that. Adding Zerto to the mix just took it to an entirely different level. I'm curious about this, the fingerprinting of a VM. I was just talking with a healthcare related customer this morning, and their mandate is to move everything to the cloud. And I said, aren't you concerned about security? Well, this would be a great solution to bring to them, wouldn't it?
Well, that's absolutely it. I mean, that's what we're looking at is whatever your workload is, having the ability to automatically recover is critical. It's just the world that we live in, and that's the idea of cyber resiliency. Everybody, we've talked about, can I really ever completely avoid an attack? The answer is probably no. But at the very least, I can make sure that should an attack occur, it doesn't have a critical I don't suffer a critical failure across my entire enterprise. Or I can recover very fast and do it in a way that I don't lose, critical data. So what's kind of cool is that HPE, of course, started off as a server company, server and storage, but we've moved also into networking, right? So we bought Aruba 5 years ago. And so Aruba now adds security from the edge with its SASE offering, which integrates Silver Peak all the way to the edge. We can then move that data securely from the edge into a cloud or into a data center through things like Pensando. Then we can actually make sure that wherever, let's say it's a GreenLake cloud, once that data is in the cloud, we can make sure that as that data is running or being processed in a virtual machine or in a container, it's can't be affected by, or has a lot of resilience to being attacked by a criminal. And then we store it. So then we store it into, one of our storage products, and all of our storage products have immutability. So when you talk about 3-2-1, in the old days when I've done tech for 33 years, when I was in the military, we had to make 2 copies of our tapes. And one of them had to be stored locally, and the other had to be taken to the building across the base. And we had, and so every day we'd make that drive. But now with immutability, they can't modify that backup. That backup can't be deleted. It can't be encrypted. It is immutable, unchangeable for a period of time, which will allow me to recover from it without losing data.
That's really terrific. Well, James, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic teaser conversation. And I believe a number of our customers are going to want to dive deeper with us on this. So folks, thanks so much for joining us. And please click the link and schedule an appointment with us. We would love to follow up and go deeper into this conversation and see how these technologies fit into your environment. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate your help and expertise here. This has been really valuable.
All right, thank you all for the time.